Here's a thought. Don't you think it is wonderful that so many of you sitting thousands of miles away from WION studios are being able to watch Gravitas live? Who would have thought that someday the world would be at our fingertips, on our mobile screens? That we would be able to video call a person from a remote island, or have pizza delivered by drones, have vehicles that self-park, or lights that detect motion? Who would have thought that someday we would be able to take joy rides to space? We have science to thank for all of this. It is science that has made miracles possible. Today it is the day to celebrate this subject. Today is World Science Day. The day was first observed in 2002. The idea was to honor the role of science in our lives, which means this year we are celebrating the 20th World Science Day. And that is not the only reason why this year is special. Today, science deserves the loudest applause, for it has once again made possible what was once thought to be impossible. It is courtesy science that so many of us are vaccinated against the Wuhan virus. When the virus from China started making us sick, science took up an almost impossible challenge. It worked on delivering a vaccine for a virus that the world knew nothing about. We did not know the virus's origin or its nature. For the longest time, we couldn't even figure out some of the symptoms and side effects of the Wuhan virus. But science took the challenge head-on and delivered vaccines at a record speed. The world had Wuhan virus vaccines in less than a year. This is the miracle of science for you. It can help us sail through the toughest of times. When stuck in a potentially dangerous situation, science enables you to send an SOS signal through your phone. If you have a headache, you have painkillers to fall back on, courtesy science. If you have a pet at home, science allows you to keep a check on her, talk to her, even feed her from a distance. You know, when people were stuck in COVID isolation wards across the world, robots kept them company. Video calls allowed so many people to kiss goodbye to their loved ones one final time. Science outperformed itself during the pandemic. It also faced some of the biggest challenges to its credibility. Some of the loudest ones came from world leaders. Here's one of them on your screen. Brazil's president, Jair Bolsonaro, for example, he questioned the vaccine. He discouraged people from getting jabbed. Bolsonaro showed up unvaccinated for the United Nations General Assembly just to make his point. But the point is, science is not a matter of opinion. Science is about facts. It's about evidence. And the problem is that a lot of people are not ready to understand this very simple fact. Take the brigade of anti-vaxxers, for example. How do you talk science to them? How do you tell them that they need vaccines to survive? How do you tell them that relying on science is the only way to survive? You can't choose to not turn on the light on your life jacket when drowning in the sea. You can't choose to not take a vaccine when the world is overwhelmed by a pandemic. You see, questioning science or promoting pseudoscience is a recipe for disaster. This is a subject, this is a concept, a temperament that we must embrace if we want to make progress, to move forward. Look at how science has helped us in the last decade. We have successfully edited genes, solved mysteries of the space, be it the icy mountains of Pluto, or the organic molecules on Mars, or the presence of water on the planet, the red planet. In the last decade, we also redefined the unit of mass. We changed the definition of the kilogram. Even came up with a vaccine for Ebola. Despite all of this, we have failed to appreciate the beauty of science, I say. How many students do you think study pure sciences today? How many youngsters want to pursue chemistry, geology, or physics? In England, science scores among 9th graders have dropped for the first time in over 2 decades. A survey in India found that more students today are enrolling for arts in undergraduation. Science is lagging by a huge margin. Is the pursuit of science not rewarding anymore? Does a chemistry graduate need to upskill herself to get a job? Does a physics grad need an MBA for an offer letter? The biggest challenge facing science is the lack of revenue and avenues. You see, the lesser the funding, the lesser the opportunity. Scientists need money to run their labs, to continue their research, to pay their assistants and their staff. Today, science is in want of funding. University grants run out. Sometimes the industry steps in. They fund research, but that funding comes with expectation and the risk of bias. There's another problem with science. It is hard to understand. most of the time. Research papers are so heavily worded, they're so jargon-filled, they barely evoke any sense of interest. It's hard to get through one. Science needs to be made more accessible if it is to generate interest in people, especially the younger generation. Do you know why? Because those attending junior school today cannot afford to lose interest in science. They will need science to solve a lot of problems in future. They will need science to combat climate change. They will need science to put food on every plate, to survive global warming. We can't let our children enter the future without holding the hand of science. So here's my message to parents tonight. It's totally fine if your child is not inclined towards science, but you must ensure that your child does not grow up to rubbish science or to embrace pseudoscience. Do you know why? Because believe it or not, it is our duty to help science thrive. Do you know what the 8th fundamental duty in the Indian Constitution says? I'm going to read it out for you. This is what it says. This is from Article 51A of the Constitution of India, and I'm quoting, "It shall be the duty of every citizen of India to develop the scientific temper, humanism, and the spirit of inquiry and reform." India is one of the very few countries in the world where the Constitution encourages a citizen to be curious, to develop a spirit of inquiry. It has been mentioned as a duty. So let's cherish this. Let's make scientific temper a way of life. After all, that's the only way we can thrive as a society. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.